What's up, everybody? I never thought we would be doing multiple Alec Murdaugh videos in 1 week, this many months after the trial, but here we are. Because after, what was it, yesterday or the day before? I think it was 2 days ago. My days and my week is completely screwed up and thrown off and chaotic because of the hurricane. But we have some more information and news about Alec Murdaugh. And after discussing his recent guilty plea, or his upcoming guilty plea, I should say, on our last video, now we have some information about how prison life is going for Alec Murdaugh, as reports have come down that he has lost his phone and tablet privileges. Now, we have the actual Department of Corrections report that we are going to read together. But I want to talk through the details, discuss any questions you may have, and explain how it is possible that some communications or things between his lawyer and him have landed him in hot water. Which lawyer, how, what's happening? And people are commenting on the cover photo. Yeah, you can thank John for that. But yeah, that is part of what's going on. I was going to show some of those selfies, but I will refrain. But yeah, he was taking these weird selfies of himself, shirtless, whatever, looking careless, like he doesn't care, like everything's fine in prison, which is fine, whatever. But who's he sending those to? Is he sending those? Some facilities allow certain electronic devices to send certain things to people. Is he using the guise of legal mail for some things, like potentially what he is in hot water for now, losing his privileges? And we're going to discuss all that today. We're going to discuss how inmates can use cell phones and use tablets, and when or if Alec Murdaugh is going to get these back. So hit that like button if you haven't already. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe if you haven't already. Yes, we're doing fine after the hurricane. Office is open. We're back working. All of our systems are not running necessarily perfectly. We've got internet issues and power issues and things we're still working through this morning, but we're thankful to be able to be here and on the road to normalcy again after this hurricane did hit us, but not nearly as bad as it could have been. Thank you, Rebecca, for gifting some memberships. Welcome, Jenny Hand. And Cyrus said, wish you had covered the AJ Armstrong case. I don't know what that case is. And Jenny, welcome. All right. So let's get into it. So here was the report that I read. Okay. I think it's good to the headline I read, then we're going to read the actual release from the Department of Corrections, and then we'll kind of dig into it. So the report I read was Jim Griffin, one of Murdaugh's lawyers, who I think is doing like YouTube and podcast and Twitter stuff. He was kind of doing it during the trial. Judge told him to wait till after the trial, so he did. And I think he's in that world a little bit now, or I should say this world that I am currently living in on your computer screen or cell phone or TV or however you watch this program. But he's in this world a little bit. And the report I read was Jim Griffin was recording Alec Murdaugh to use it for the Fox Nation documentary or Docu-Series that they are doing called, what is it called? It's like the fall of the House of Murdaugh. Fox Nation documentary. So that's what I first heard, is Jim Griffin was basically recording him and he was going to send it in and it was going to be used on this Fox Nation documentary. This is the same documentary, I believe, that we watched a clip of during our last video of Buster Murdaugh unequivocally denying all allegations regarding Stephen Smith. So is this going to be, and this is just one guy's opinion and question I have for you all. So if Murdaugh, Jim Griffin, and Buster are all involved and giving content and sitting for interviews and sending in recordings and are a part of this docuseries, how do we think this is going to go? Because just hearing those details, it makes you think it's going to be maybe positive for the Murdaughs. Maybe it's going to talk about how he's innocent. Maybe it's going to talk about how they didn't have enough evidence. But then when you hear the title, The Fall of the House of Murdaugh, maybe it's not. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Just with those details, right? Those reported details. We saw the Buster clips, or at least some of them, which were positive for him, I guess. But I think she did ask some good questions, and the questions we all wanted to know the answers to. And now that Jim Griffin and Alec Murdaugh are involved. So Bodie asks a really good question to jump us off. Can they give info if they don't make money off of it? Absolutely. You can give information and not make money off it. Now, maybe the tone of your question was, are they allowed to give information? Does the law require only that you can't profit off of your information? So if that's how you ask the question, the answer may be different. So number one, yes, people have given information to get fame, to get clout, whatever it may be, and not actually gotten paid for it. That is one way to do it. And every law is different. Every law is different with regards to whether or not you can be interviewed, paid, get any benefit from your crime. And we're going to look into a little bit today about how South Carolina looks at that. So let's pull up here now. Let's pull up the report by the Department of Corrections. All right. So here we go. And this was filed yesterday. And I think I see a question here. Netwoman, how did they find out about the calls? Isn't that lawyer-client confidentiality? I'm going to save this question, Netwoman, because we are going to discuss this. We are going to discuss this. All right. August 30th, Columbia, South Carolina, inmate Richard Alec Murdaugh has been convicted of 2 internal disciplinary charges: abuse of privileges and unauthorized use of an inmate's PIN number. He had a disciplinary hearing for these charges on August 28th, and he lost his telephone and canteen privileges for 30 days. Canteen privileges is like commissary, going and buying stuff from the commissary. So here's what's interesting. What he was accused of and what he was charged with and convicted of is the abuse of privileges. So what was interesting is some of the DMs and the tweets you guys said when you sent me this, you didn't send me this document specifically, but that he lost his privileges is this guy's been abusing privilege his whole life, right? His position of power, the people he knew, the money he had, the things that he did. That's what he's been doing his whole life. And it's interesting to see it in black and white yet again here. These charges involve providing information to be delivered to the news media for an interview and also using a fellow inmate's PIN number to make a telephone call. These charges violate SCDC's inmate interview policy and our policy against inmates sharing PIN numbers. They are not a violation of law. Poor guy that he convinced and manipulated into giving his PIN number is probably also in trouble too. Murdaugh provided the interview information to his attorney through a legal call. Legal calls are not recorded or monitored on the inmate phone system per attorney-client privilege. Attorney Jim Griffin recorded Murdaugh reading the information provided to the media. So we will pause here and answer Netwoman's question. How did they find out about this call if they do not record calls? That's a very good question. But when it comes to legal mail and legal phone calls that are not reviewed, not recorded, not copied, because generally I think we all know at this point, jail phone calls are recorded. They look through all your mail, everything that's sent in, sent out, but not when it's legal documents or legal calls, because that's privileged and confidential. But that's not a blanket rule. That would not necessarily apply to every time I called a friend or family member that I represented. It only applies to legal calls in furtherance of the representation of whatever it is you represent them for. So if I just called every single day to talk about the weather, to talk about this or that, it might not actually be privileged. Now, if you say, "Hey, how you doing? How's the AC in there? How's the weather outside? How's your family?" and then we get into it, that's a legal call. So it doesn't have to be every word that is said on the legal call is a legal call. But lawyers and criminal defendants have gotten in trouble in the past using the legal mail and legal call system and abusing it. Sending things back and forth. And you can always think, like, what is a lawyer thinking when they, and I'm not saying that's what Jim Griffin did. What is a lawyer thinking, though, when they're sending drugs back and forth and they get busted for that? Conjugal visits with clients that are, they get free time. And we've heard about that. That's happened. It's wild. It's happened in my home state. Basically, lawyers are furthering crime inside the walls. And it is really something that blows my mind every time I think of it. But legal calls and legal mail is only for that reason. All right, let's continue reading. When information reached the department on August 8th about the interview, Murdaugh's tablet and phone privileges were immediately revoked pending a review of the incidents. So there you go. Once they heard about it, once they heard about this issue, then it sounds like they went back and listened to the call. After his phone call privileges were revoked, Murdaugh used a fellow inmate's PIN number to make a telephone call, which is prohibited by our policy. So they take away his phone privileges, they take away his tablet. So what does he do? He goes and convinces some other inmate to give him his PIN number and still makes a phone call, knowing it's going to be recorded. And this is the problem sometimes with people that are incarcerated for life. Multiple life sentences, about to be more with these federal charges that he's going to plead guilty to. What does he have to lose? If he wants to make a call, he's going to make a call. He's going to break all the rules. What does he care? Well, what can the prison do in return? Take away phone, take away tablet, take away commissary, or as they call it, canteen privileges. The department has sent a letter to Murdaugh's attorneys explaining that their conduct is prohibited by policy and warning the attorneys of the consequences because it's not just Alec Murdaugh that could get in trouble for this. Jim Griffin could also find himself in trouble with the bar if he's violating rules of the prison knowingly with his client. So what did they say? They said, we put him on notice. We told him you can't do this stuff. And so now we'll see kind of how he responds. I haven't seen a public response from Jim Griffin. Inmates in the custody of South Carolina Department of Corrections are not allowed to do interviews. SCDC's interview policy is rooted in victims' rights and is longstanding. The department believes that victims of crimes should not have to see or hear the person who victimized them or their family member on the news. Inmates lose the privilege of speaking to the news media when they enter South Carolina Department of Corrections. There is your answer. I think it was Bodie that asked in the beginning, can they do interviews without getting paid? So they can do them, but they would be against South Carolina Department of Corrections rules and policies. And this maybe even is a little different than Son of Sam law, because once you come into the Department of Corrections, you lose certain rights. And one of those rights is not just profiting off of your story. You can't even do interviews where victims, and it's rooted in the fact that victims should not have to see you on the news, on Netflix, on documentaries. If they want to make them, they can make them, but you don't get to take part in them as the actual inmate. People got on me for saying inmates. That's what they're saying here in the interviews as well. I'm sorry, in this document as well. Inmates lose privileges. So that's the verbiage I'm using. That's the official verbiage here in these in these documents. Terry Dice said our taxes pay for this crap in prison is insane. Can't argue with you there. Rebecca Cowboys says needing legal advice. Okay, I don't know what that means. I'm not giving legal advice over these YouTube videos, as you know. Tori, please explain why prisoners have access to tablets and internet. When did prison become a resort type of place? Well, then I think Rebecca responded to this. Federal prisoners get more than you think they do. Hashtag awesome draft. She's talking about the fantasy football draft there. So yeah, let's talk about, what prisoners get. Some prisoners have access to tablets. They have access to phones. They have access to internet. Usually it's limited. Not all prisons have access to internet, but sometimes they have some access, I'll say. Very limited, but some access in different ways. And sometimes on the tablet, you can pay, like on a plane or something, for access to certain websites, maybe some news sites, maybe sending an email. All of it's monitored, of course, depending on the prison system. But they have these amenities. And we've already talked about the cigarettes and the, whatever he was betting and winning on sports. All of that are things he's purchasing in the canteen or the commissary, as they stated here. All right, so let's look here at this last paragraph. Tablets are designed and secured for correctional use. They are considered a privilege. The department will determine when and if inmate Murdaugh will earn the opportunity to be issued a tablet again. And this is a different set of circumstances than the phone and the canteen, because the phone and the canteen are taken away for 30 days. I'm assuming that's a first strike type of policy. And if he continues to do it, it'll probably get worse. But when it comes to the tablet, they may never give it back to him. My guess is they are going to give him another chance, but when and if, usually it's if or when, not when, because if you say when and if, that would mean it's eventually going to happen, right? Because you say when, but I don't know. Regardless, it's not a guarantee that he ever gets this privilege back to using a tablet again. All right. So before we get to them putting Jim Griffin on notice, let's read a couple more comments. Blah, blah, blah. If he had said something during the call that was lawyer legally has to report, could be the lawyer letting them know to check the call. Does not sound like that. So I will tell you some context to this. All reports are that Jim Griffin was recording with Jim Griffin's cell phone the conversation from Alec Murdaugh with his phone inside the prison. Alec Murdaugh reading his his diary entries. I think it was during the trial, or his thoughts throughout the case or throughout the trial, to get some of this behind the scenes exclusive content for this Fox Nation documentary. That's what it sounds like. So Griffin not only, by reports, doesn't sound like Griffin, it sounds like he did know about it and was actually actively participating in it, is what it sounds like. I don't know that to be true, but that's what the reports are, that he was recording it and then he was giving it to Fox Nation. This wasn't a Fox Nation reporter recording it. Why? You have to start asking yourself why. Is it because they knew or thought that if Griffin didn't, it wouldn't get recorded? They might not know about it. Kirsty, Son of Sam law is usually the different ways states have laws that you can't profit off of your crime. Beldy, are state prison inmates permitted to have personal devices for recreational use of internet communication? All the best, P and fam. I don't know what you mean by personal devices, but yes, they have devices that they themselves can use and do certain things. Yes, you would call them recreational use, educational use, things like that. They do have certain things like that. It's not like you having your own iPad or cell phone, though. Robin, can we hire you to file a class action suit for all of us that have been affected by having to see Alec Murdaugh without a shirt? LOL, please add John to the suit since he contributed to it. I know, right? I hope he listens back and sees all these comments. That's on him. I can't believe he went so graphic with that picture. I was like, oof. It was not my favorite picture either, or tile that he's done. Pat, could this be just one of the reasons he wanted to be transferred to federal prison? Yes. More privileges in federal prison. Nicole, yeah. Thanks, John, for the horrible pick. I'm suing John. My eyes hurt. I'll be your witness. I'll be all of your guys' witness. I cannot believe it. Megan, welcome to the crew. Maui girl, did they start getting tablet privileges during 2020 or have they always had them in prisons? I don't know when it started. It's a good question. Tom, Peter, impossible to find a bad restaurant in Brussels. Impossible to get robbed, murdered in Japan. Impossible for Alec Murdaugh to be truthful or follow the rules, in my opinion. You ever heard the saying, which Tom, I know you have, you give them an inch, they take a mile? Yeah, I think about it with kids most of the time, but that describes Alec Murdaugh. You make him a volunteer prosecutor. What does he do? He takes the badge, flashes it around, puts law enforcement lights in his car, walks through hospitals, flashing his badge. Just takes a mile when you give him that inch. You make him a lawyer, let him represent people, collect money for them. It's giving him more than an inch. And what does he do? He takes a mile by taking everything, not just the attorney's fees. And now you give him some privileges. And what does he do? He runs with them and does not stop. All right, let's get to the letter here to Jim Griffin. Dear Mr. Griffin, as you are probably aware, your client was recently convicted of an internal disciplinary infraction related to your June 10th, 2023 telephone conversation with him, where Mr. Murdaugh was reading excerpts of his journal he maintained during the Colleton County trial. There we go. There's your answer. That's what was happening. And they know that because they heard the content of the call. He was reading his journal entries and Griffin was recording them. And I'll just say, some of you guys haven't liked Jim Griffin very much on this channel or around this trial. I feel like he seems like a pretty stand-up guy. He didn't seem like a lot of, smoke and mirrors. I feel like his heart was in the case. He did his best. I do think he was very close to Murdaugh and his family. So I understand how that can affect the way you think about a case or the way you think about a person when dealing with them and representing them. It can make it harder, but he knew so many of the intimate details. So I don't have anything personally against or professionally against Jim Griffin. I'm just reading and saying what the allegations are at this point. In our Inspector General's interview of Mr. Murdaugh, he indicated that you recorded those journal entries and provided them to the media. So it sounds like Murdaugh maybe sold out Jim Griffin or just told the truth. Maybe he told the truth. Maybe. Inmates in the custody of the South Carolina Department of Corrections are not allowed to participate in interviews of this nature. Maybe Griffin didn't know that. It is possible. Maybe neither of them knew that. And they just thought, hey, this is the way we could do it. And if they want to read it or listen to it, they can listen to it. Your actions, and here's the important phrase, whether you intended or not, assisted Mr. Murdaugh in violating our policy and could jeopardize your telephonic communications with him in the future. So what does that mean? With these kinds of violations, to try to circumvent the rule of recorded jail calls with the attorney-client privilege may turn out and end up in you no longer having privileged, unrecorded conversations with Mr. Murdaugh. It's just like the media in the Koberger case or in the Gwyneth Paltrow case or in the Vallow Daybell case. Once you break the rules, sanctions could follow. And we try to make it fair in our justice system, even with the Department of Corrections. We want to make sure you know the rules. Now, ignorance is never a defense, and not knowing the law is not a defense of breaking it. But in these situations, and when we can, we want to make sure you know the rules so that you also know not to break them in the future. Attorney calls are provided to assist with legal claims, not for other unrelated purposes. So that's what I was talking about off the jump. It has to deal with your representation of the claims you're representing Murdaugh for. It can't just be these other media phone calls. You cannot use the unrecorded attorney-client privileged phone calls for that purpose. I am hopeful that this letter will put you on notice and caution you to refrain from further actions of this nature. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Please do not hesitate to contact me or our general counsel should you have any questions or need further clarifications. And look who they copied. CC, Richard, don't call me Dick, Harpootlian. So he is also on notice now, as he was sent a copy of this letter. Very interesting. Rebecca said, support me. I got a great draft. I'm going to support you I'll support you in life, but not fantasy football. I'm trying to take you down, Rebecca, and everybody else. Everybody else. Because if I win, I want everybody on my side rooting me on the fantasy football league. Because if I win, we're doing something cool for everybody in the channel. And if just one person wins, they get a prize. Donna Cole, welcome to the membership crew. Whoops. Sweet and Salty said, my first criminal justice class taught us ignorance of the law. Sorry, ignorance is no excuse for the law. Yes. You go in, you steal something, you say, oh, I didn't realize that was wrong. Well, that's not a defense. You have a relationship with somebody that's underaged. Well, that's not a defense. You can't just say, I didn't know, therefore I shouldn't get in trouble for it. Ellen says, book deal to pay for attorney's fees. I definitely don't think there's a direct line of revenue going to Alec Murdaugh. But I think that it's possible that there are some secondary ways that money is changing hands that could benefit Alec Murdaugh with some of these, I don't know, documentaries or whatever it is you want to call them. I think that's possible, and I think that's something that they really want to guard against. And I don't blame them for that. Yes, don't forget to hit that like button. Thank you, Brittany. And get your questions. And now I actually have about, 15, 20 minutes left. So we can do a lot of questions. We can keep it to Murdaugh. We can do questions on other things if people have other questions. Nirvana. Murdaugh is a lifelong habitual line crosser. Of course, he finds a way around the calls and commissary. Yeah, using other people's PIN numbers in addition to, like, he's not talking to media outlets directly. So he's talking to his lawyer who's recording it and then sending it in. And I read a report that the reason they caught him using somebody else's PIN number is because his voice is so recognizable that when they were listening to phone calls, to jail calls, and it was this other guy's PIN number, they heard Alec Murdaugh's voice. Because you think about it, how would they know he was using another person's PIN number? That person who gave him the PIN number is not going to rat him out, but they just knew his voice at that point. Rebecca, after working at a prison, all calls should be suspected as being recorded. Yeah, sure. But if they ever tried to use an attorney-client phone call, that would be a major, major issue. Mrs. Escobar, hey, Peter, get that prize ready because it's coming to Houston. Well, that would be the first prize NFL-wise coming to Houston ever, maybe, or at least in a very long time. Sorry if that shot was below the belt. It was a while before the Bucs won anything before we got Tom Brady, but 2 in my lifetime is pretty good. Teresa, Sarah Boone, did you hear if her lawyer had been allowed to quit? I have not heard that yet, but I've got an inside source who's going to give me all the information as it comes down the pipe in Sarah Boone's case. Claims of unfair treatment to get into federal prison. He could try. Again, that could be part of the deal. I doubt it. Amanda, question. Once federally sentenced, does he get to choose where he goes to serve his time? So if you check out our last video, I kind of went deeper into it, but generally speaking, the general rule is wherever you get sentenced first is the time you serve first. And because he's got a life sentence in state prison, it's probably going to do it all there. Studi, Peter, can you please explain in what situation he can waive attorney-client privilege in scenarios like this? So he can waive it. The client can waive it anytime they want. So he can waive it. But you also lose rights in prison. So again, like I said, I can't just go there and hang out with my best friend that, and say that I'm their lawyer and say everything we're talking about is attorney-client privilege if it's not. If your team bought a Super Bowl, Anna, doesn't every team buy their Super Bowl? How many teams don't buy their Super Bowl? They got to pay players. They got to sign free agents. Got to pay coaches. Come on. Marlene, boss, what would happen if Murdaugh's son would ghostwrite his biography? Technically, he's considered a victim because he's direct family. He is the victim, technically, the direct family member of the deceased, of the victims of the case. So he would not be subject to the same laws that would prevent making money off of a book deal. Netwoman, when is your singing live stream? We all enjoyed you singing Aerosmith. I highly doubt anybody enjoyed that. I try to tell myself I'm good at certain things, right? There are certain things in life that I'm good at. Singing is not one of them. It's been very clear my entire life that is not one of them. Summer said, haha, we have awesome baseball teams in Houston. I'm not even going to go there. That's like a softball. If I really want to take some shots, you bringing up the Houston Astros. Any sports fans, I think, know what I'm talking about. Taylor Schabusiness sentencing coming up in a few weeks, Ritz said. Yeah, I think we know how that's going to go. Sarah Boone should just represent herself. She's never going to be satisfied with any attorney. I do not think she should represent herself. All right, fair. Jim is no family friend, no friend of Maggie and Paul's. Okay. Noakes, will this conduct have an adversary effect on Murdaugh's appeal? No. None of this will affect the appeal. We talk about it all the time. The only things that matter in the appeal is what happens during the actual trial. Not even, stuff that happens afterwards most likely can affect the appeal. Stuff that happens in the trial. Ms. Escobar, ouch, we're rebuilding. Yeah, always rebuilding. Poor David Carr. That's the first thing I think about when I think of Houston. I think CJ Stroud's good, though. I think you guys are on the right track. You got a cheap late round running back that seems to be panning out. So I like where you're going. A couple of those trades with the Dolphins set you back, though. Question, can Buster interview and get money for it since he is not implicated in any of the crimes? So yes. So I answered this one already. Let's see what else we got. Can you waive privilege and assert it later? So yes and no. Yes, you can waive privilege and assert it later, but not for like the same content. Like he can't waive it here to use it for something he wants to and then assert it later to protect himself. But it's not like, once you waive attorney-client privilege on some conversation that you had, that you waive it for everything. There are different circumstances that you could waive more than you think you waived, but generally speaking, we want to try to protect that as much as we can. The NFL does have cap. Thank you, Azam, for the super sticker. Jen S., too bad you needed our QB to get your Super Bowl wins. Well, I think he's our QB, all right? Meaning yours and mine. All of our QB. Everybody he won Super Bowls for. Rebecca, coming to Dallas. Dallas broke Brady. Not going to win this one, Peter. If this is your channel. All I got to say, Rebecca, is since Brady came to Tampa, only one of us got a Super Bowl between Dallas and Tampa, and it wasn't Dallas. So I don't know who broke who, but Brady came and did what he was supposed to do. He is who we thought he was. Tori, when is the Zoom for the 4 people? I think it's in a month. I was just talking to John about it this week on our weekly call. So it is in the works. Helen, Nosy Me, where did you meet your wife? Florida State. We met each other at Florida State. We both worked at Planet Smoothie. That's how we met each other. And actually, the guy that introduced us is going to be at the LSU-FSU game in Orlando, and we're going to be hanging out with him. So it's fun times. Summer, is the game still on? Go Tigers. I don't know why I read the Go Tigers part. Everything I've heard, yes, the game is still on. If you're going to the game, let me know, because I am going to be there. I'm going to be tailgating, hopping around to a couple tailgates before the game. Would love to see anybody there from the channel that's going to be there. That would be hilarious and awesome. People are asking about Henry Dinkel's trial. I don't know. I don't know that one. Tom, Peter, general thought. I really, really like Judge. I really do, but couldn't help myself on the lame joke. I think he's good too. I think he's in the upper echelon. So we've already voted for our favorite judges in the members only chat, where we kind of vote on lawyers and judges. And the next one, I think we're going to do plaintiffs, defendants, victims, defendants, on who we think like presented the best at trials that we have watched together. And I think Judge would give just about any of them a run for their money. I think Judge Doro won the vote, but it was close between her and Judge Newman and Judge Ascarati. We've had some good ones, and I think Judge is on the good judge list. Jenna, I wish you could look into my girlfriend's murder case, which didn't go through to the Crown because of the medical examiner mistake, and compare it to the United States. Canada doesn't have justice. Man, Jenna, I'm sorry to hear that. That's that's wild. I mean, people probably have similar complaints about outcomes in America too. So I don't want you to think that's just your justice system or your country, but that would be interesting. Ellen, Adelia blew through here last night. Carolina Beach, NC, all good. Glad you guys didn't have any damage. Yeah, it seems like I haven't seen a ton of the worst that people were expecting or fearing when it came through. So that's always good. I know there's some damage done always and some things to recover from, but it could have been a whole lot worse. So we're thankful for that for sure. Rebecca's still sending love, which is good. That's good. We're going to have some fantasy football smack talk on here, but it's all love. Can a private lawyer do pro bono for Sarah Boone? Yes. Private lawyers control their own time, control their case list, control who they work for. So if they want to do it for free, they can do it for free. If they want to charge a lot of money, they can charge a lot of money. If somebody's willing to pay it, then they can hire that lawyer. So private lawyers control their own time. So yes, they could. I don't expect that to happen, but they could. Ms. Escobar, at least I'm a Texan fan, not a Cowboys fan. Sorry, Rebecca. At least we have the Astros. You can't deny that. I'm married to a Dodgers fan, so cheaters, blah, 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 LOL. Cheater, 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 blah, blah, blah. That's good. And yeah, I like sticking with the hometown team, even if, the bigger, more famous, more successful team is very close to you. You don't jump off of your bandwagon and onto that one. So good on you, Mrs. Escobar. Donna Cole, thanks for the super sticker. Rebecca trying to make Azam a boys fan. I think it's possible because I don't think Azam has any allegiance to any American football team. So I think that is possible. Sharon, how would I get my foot in the door to work at a law office? I want to become a paralegal, but don't know where to start since I've never had an experience in a law office. So here's what I'll say. It's a great question, actually. And we should just do an entire stream on this, talking about like working in the legal field, whether it's lawyers, people in law school, people in college who want to go to law school, paralegals, legal assistants, whatever it is, because it's a topic I love. It is not that hard. I would say if you have any like retail experience, that's great to use and sell in an interview. We just hired our most recent hire was a manager at a bunch of different retail shops. She did go to school for paralegal studies, but not a lot of paralegal experience. And she's awesome. And so retail, dealing with people, being on the phones, doing a lot of things at once, all of that are skills that you can sell when you go in and say, I'll start at the bottom. I'll start as a receptionist, as a runner, as a legal assistant, whatever it is you need. I will start there. And then as you crush there, law firms are very like internalistic because every law firm does things kind of their own way and differently. So once you learn the processes and procedures of the law firm, and we actually have it in our HR manual that we will offer if we think, not just if you're not ready for it, but if we think that you are ready for the position that is above you, then we will offer that position to you before we interview somebody else. Again, if we feel like you've been trained enough, not if it's your second week on the job and a paralegal position, you're a legal assistant and a paralegal position opens up. But if you're ready for the job, we offer it to our people first because they already know how we do things. They already know the lawyers. They already know the other paralegals. They already know a lot of the clients. So once you do get your foot in the door, it's a lot easier to move up in a law firm than it is for somebody to just jump in with no experience and apply for a paralegal position. So I would say just try to get your foot in the door, impress them as much as you can. And use whatever experience you have to show how you're an asset in a law office, which is a lot of different ways. So we can talk more about that probably on another video. Azam, Rebecca, I'm still deciding. See, she's open. I mean, I think she should be a Bucks fan just because she's a lawyer, fan. So that should go hand in hand. But as long as you're a Knoll fan, Seminoles, Florida State, you can pick whatever pro team you want. Joy Puffle says, more importantly, go Packers. We'll see how they rebound from losing a Hall of Fame quarterback as well. Do a members video on worst court actors so far. So we did one on worst lawyers, or our least favorite lawyers, I think is what we called it. And I think we're going to do one on least favorite clients, but I think I already know who's going to win that one. Summer, I graduated LSU. Have you been to one of our home games? I have not. The very best. At Rebecca, I do love the Cowboys. Dak grew up in my tiny small town and is friends with my brother. Dak lives right by me in Prosper, Texas. Good times. So Summer Golden, that's awesome. No, I've never been to an LSU game. I have a very good buddy who went to Florida State with me. He worked for the Florida State football team. He's traveled to like every stadium. He's also like an Auburn fan because I think one of his parents went to Auburn or something. And he does say that LSU atmosphere is insane. He went to like an LSU Bama game back in the day, not back in the day, a few years ago when it was the biggest game you could go to. So yeah, and I don't disagree with you there. Although the Doke can get rocking too in Tallahassee. Tori, you guys are making it fun with the trash talk fantasy football. Please keep it up. I love seeing the funny side of Peter. I'm sure that will continue as time continues. And people are just go Panthers. I mean, they're just throwing all their NFL teams in here now. Who's pumped about the season starting? Because I'm pumped. I love fantasy football. I love football, period. Love college football. It's going to be awesome. Netwoman, this is hilarious how the super chats are making Peter root for other teams out loud. Yeah, I don't mind saying it with the NFL teams, but with the college teams, there are some teams I ain't reading. There's a few. Some college teams I don't care. You like Nebraska? Go Nebraska. You know, even LSU. After we beat them on Monday or Sunday night, then sure, I'll say go LSU all year like last year. Once we thumped them, I was like, yeah, go LSU. Be awesome. Make our win look better. I'm not actually that confident. I'm really nervous about the game. It's going to be miserable. I'm going to be at the game. And whenever I go to a game and we lose, it's literally miserable. I see some go Birds, go Chiefs, Seahawks fan, Broncos. Tori, Peter, we're mortal enemies. Remember when it was the Battle of the Bays, Green Bay and Tampa Bay? Yes. So this is like one of the earliest memories I have of watching football with my dad is we would go to like this little sports bar. It wasn't even a bar. It was more like a restaurant and eat after church and watch Green Bay, Tampa Bay. We also went to some in the stadium, the old stadium. I think it was called the Sombrero in Tampa and with Brett Favre. But yeah, really cool Battle of the Bays. And that used to be a big thing. And I can like remember, I can like see the graphics on Fox in my head when they would do the Battle of the Bay stuff before the game. So that was always cool. Yeah, man, football is so awesome. It's just so fun. Bengals, Eagles, Pats, Steelers. We literally have fans from everywhere. Buckeyes, that's an eye roll for me. Spartans, sure, why not? Buckeyes is on the medium list. It's like if Florida State's bad, I'm okay with Ohio State being good. My whole not my wife, she's an old, but her side of the family all loves the Buckeyes. Keep your ear out. Team football and chain. Go Bucks. Yeah, Kayla, I'm not going to lie. There was a couple people you took that I wasn't happy you took them. So, Mina, Peter, do you follow the NBA at all? Do you have a favorite player or team of all time? So I'm a Jordan guy, okay? My favorite team is the Magic. Favorite Magic players are, I loved like Penny back in the day. I loved Hito Turkoglu for our good run. I like Dwight Howard. I love the team they've put together now. The Wagner boys and Paolo. So I'm excited to see how the two new rookies, I didn't know them as well when they picked them, but I'm a big Magic fan. Favorite player of all time is Jordan, but I mean, there's a lot of guys I loved watching. I loved watching John Stockton. I love watching Steph Curry is my favorite player to watch right now. Love watching Luka Doncic. I'm not a LeBron guy myself. But yes, I am. I do like the NBA as well. Man, we went a long time on sports talk there. I can't believe you guys are all still here hanging out. The bad boy Pistons were fun to watch. I wasn't like a fan of them, but I liked watching them get beat. So my whole family used to hate Michael Jordan, like my extended family, and we would always do like holidays there. And I would be alone rooting for Jordan against the Jazz. Everybody else wanted the Jazz to win. And it was just sweet, sweet victory all the time because Mike never lost. So that was a great, great side to be on as a kid. And I was still a Magic fan, but you got to recognize greatness when it's there. So once it gets to the playoffs and the Magic were never in it, I was like, yeah, let's see Mike win again. You and Runkle discuss that Canadian case. I don't know anything about Canadian law at all. Sharon, welcome to the crew. Yeah, who's everybody's favorite NBA player to watch right now? Actually, forget the NBA. Let's talk about NFL. Who is your favorite NFL player? We'll go out on this, okay? We'll start to wind down. Thank you everybody for joining. Hit the like button if you haven't. If you put your favorite team in there, hit the like button. If you didn't, hit the like button. Who's your favorite NFL player right now? Bryce Young. I mean, mine hurts because my favorite NFL player is probably still Jameis Winston because he brought me a championship at Florida State. And that's usually how I base my favorite NFL players. Dalvin's high on the list, Cam Akers, but Jameis still just waiting for some redemption and for the comeback story to be complete for Jameis. Justin Herbert, I do like me some Justin Herbert. I love Trevor Lawrence too. Joe Burrow, Smoking Joe, Pat Mahomes, no surprise there. Stephon Diggs. So there's a funny video in the Vikings locker room where they're all like, they're asking all the players like Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, like, who's the last player on the team that you'd want your sister to date? And they all say Diggs, and it's hilarious. Patrick Mahomes, Mahomie, Joe Burrow, Mike Evans, Najee Harris, Trev Lawrence. I'm from Holland, so I get it. It's not for everybody, Janet. Rodgers, Dak Prescott, Mahomes, George Kittle. George Kittle's funny. I've seen him on like some other YouTube videos and stuff doing stuff. That's right. That's right, Future. We've got 3,700 people watching. Let's get to 5,000 likes. That's it. Just 5,000. You just got to tell a couple of your friends. Saquon Barkley is fun to watch. Justin Jefferson. Travis Kelce, fun to watch for sure. Dak, Jamar Chase. I love Jamar Chase. He's probably my favorite wide receiver in the NFL. When a player has personal legal troubles, does that ever affect your feeling about them as a player? Like Michael Vick, people like that. I actually loved Michael Vick. So Florida State played Michael Vick with Chris Winkie back in the day for a national championship, and we beat them. But I was like, that is the best dude I've ever seen play college football. Reggie Bush, another guy on that list. That was just like wild. I loved watching Michael Vick. He's my favorite guy to play with in Madden. I would say the redemption story of Michael Vick has actually made me like him more. There are other players like Ray Rice, Kareem Hunt, Joe Mixon, not as much. I haven't like heard as much as they haven't been as vocal as Michael Vick has been about, apologizing, recognizing wrong, how they got into the situation in the first place. You can understand it. Like, dang, it sucks that he didn't have better people around him at the time. And he seems like he realizes that. So I actually love Michael Vick. But yeah, I think sometimes it can creep in. But again, I think a lot of these guys get accused of things that are unfair or not true. That happens a lot too. So it's hard to jump to conclusions, especially when very few of them go the entire legal distance. Yeah, Azam's going to go with Peter's team. That's the Bucks. That's the old Buccaneers, Azam. Get used to it. You're going to hear a little bit more about them this year, but let's start with the Seminoles, okay? Week 1, probably our toughest game of the year, Sunday night. Usually it's Saturdays, but because it's the big game, week 1, Florida State against LSU, Azam is rooting for Florida State. Let's go, Azam. Get your garnet and gold ready. All right. I am out of here. I appreciate everyone. This was fun. This was a really fun ending. I'm glad we could do this, blow off some steam, just kind of hang out for a little bit. Maybe we'll do it more often when we have time at the end of videos because I enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys did too. If you did, let me know. Enjoy talking about something else. We can talk food. We can talk movies. We can talk travel. I'm not a big world traveler, but I've been a couple places. I think that would be really fun to do at the end for the last 10, 15 minutes on some videos when we have time. I don't want to bore you guys. And I want to keep it to legal stuff as much as we possibly can. Maybe I'll have John put like a bookmark. Bella, if you could put a bookmark when we start talking nonsense, just to let people know if they want to bounce early. But I appreciate you all as always. And until next time, I am officially out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Tragos Law is our handle. And don't forget to listen to the Lawyer You Know podcast featuring new episodes every week. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.